Many times, parents feel that my child doesn't have an interest in learning. For us, it's very important to understand what do we as an adult first mean when we say that my child doesn't have an interest in learning. Is it that we're saying that he doesn't want to voluntarily, come and start learning, or is it that they're saying that the child doesn't have an attention, or is it that the child is really not able to learn? Now, understanding this itself is half of the problem solved. So, in case if the challenge is really about learning, where the child is not picking up an interest in learning, doesn't want to listen, doesn't want to do something, or doesn't, even if they want to do it and is not able to learn, then this topic is going to be of great help. So, first thing for us to understand here is what exactly is learning and how is it happening in children. Even for us as adults, we have so many languages, but do we learn everything and do we get interested and curious about everything? So, do we learn all subjects and do we get interested in knowing about all gadgets? So, first thing is learning is about our self belief. It starts with there. When we take up a subject and we look at saying the child needs to learn, what is the child's self belief around it? What is the child's ability around it? Children perceive saying, for example, if you take up maths, a child who has an experience and prior experience where he's not performed well, he looks at the beginning of the subject itself saying, it is difficult for me, this is anyhow not going to work for me. For example, if a child is very good at science, they will pick up the subject and say, science done, we'll finish it off in 15-20 minutes. So it's about the way that the child associates to the subject and the way they think they perform in that subject. So for us as parents is to also dig down. The moment we say he's not able to learn or not interested in learning, it is to dig down a little deeper. Always remember, gold is where it's darker, it's deeper. So we need to ask children, understand from them what is their association, what is their belief about that subject, about the way they do it. So naturally, if you ask a child saying, oh, you're not interested in maths, why you don't like it, or do you like some other subject, what makes you like it and what makes you not like it, how has been your previous experience, any of those methods which you can get into understand for you as a parent what is their experience and what is their belief around it. One of the first things would be to see if we can reshift it. I mean, if we can realign it into something which is more meaningful, which is new. For example, a child may be always scoring, low marks in mathematics. Now, getting the child to attend many more tuitions is not going to change it. Unless there is one teacher who's going to kindle a complete new curiosity about math, saying it's not about scores, it's about the things around you. Do you know your table is about the table that you're sitting on is about maths? Do you know your height is about maths? That moment, what they're doing unintentionally is shifting their association to the subject and creating a concept saying that even you can learn because you know these things. So for us as parents, it's important to know that it starts with first creating their self-belief around it. And how do you create that? It is self-belief happens through our own voices. For example, if you're sitting with a child and you're having a conversation with your spouse saying, maths, it's always been difficult for me, then without you realizing, that's going to ring in your child's ear when he's going to be doing maths. He may pick up maths, but he may always have that ringing saying maths is difficult. That's what mama said. It's not that they consciously do it, but your voices become, really strong thinking process in their head. It could be as simple as when you make a child sit down and do science and you tell them, say, better concentrate. It's a very difficult subject. Or social studies and you tell them, say, you need more attention because this is very big subject. So whatever you're saying is going to create their self-belief around it, and that's going to have a direct impact on the way they process it, they perform it. So very first thing for us is to start looking at how are we speaking to them, how are we engaging them, and how are we helping them to learn. Another important thing for us to understand is, can we shift their association? Like we spoke before, An association could be a person who's teaching the subject, association could be the medium, association could be the way it is taught, the delivery methodology. Have you ever seen that a child is not performing so well in one school, and the moment you shift him to a different environment, another school, they start performing? So, do you mean that the child was not a learner before and suddenly became a learner? It could be because earlier the environment wasn't kindling learning, conducive environment. This one is. There is a shift in the way they associate to learning now. It could be because of a teacher. A child may be really poor at a subject but may pick up a certain liking for a teacher, and the teacher would have instilled the confidence. So the word to catch in here is, let's work on instilling confidence, encouraging children on saying, yes, it sounds difficult, but we can try. At least, do you want to try it with me? Do you want to try it with your teacher? Do you want to try it with your coach, whoever it is? Encourage children, and that is going to shift their association. It could also be a medium. For example, if they're not able to understand when you're writing it, see if they're able to understand it through a video, see if they're able to understand it through an audio. Any of those can click. Sometimes you're teaching a child for hours, but the moment you give them a sheet with the same thing written, he may pick it up in 5-10 minutes. That's possible. So where we're heading is to understand that each child also has a different learning style. The same cut doesn't work for all. Every child doesn't fit into the same way of teaching or delivery. Some children are auditory. They learn by listening. So whatever you're putting out, content, presentation, they are constantly picking out the audio part of it, which means that we need to make that effective and interesting. Some children are naturally good at picking up visual, which is go through pictorial. It could be even text. So they are more biased to reading and learning by themselves, or seeing a picture and remembering. And there are some children who are neither both, and they're around walking, doing something, and we think they're distracted, they don't have attention. But if you ask them after 5 minutes, they've heard it, they know it, and they've actually learned it. So just because they're moving doesn't mean that they're not learning. So they learn kinesthetically, and very important thing with kinesthetic is they do and learn. We'll come back to that when we look at the different solutions. Another very important thing for us is also to understand a very, very important thing, that when you're building a skyscraper, which is when you're saying that you want the child to start using learning, the first thing we do is we build the foundation. For a child, many a times, for example, if you're teaching a concept in 8th standard or 6th standard or even in 3rd standard, the very basic would have been an alphabet, or the very basic would have been a very small confusion at the foundation level. This is a recent thing which happened with us. So a parent was talking about saying he doesn't know basics of spelling. He doesn't know how to write parrot. It was not that the child did not know the spelling of parrot, but the child is used to writing it, and inside his system, he has a confusion whether it should be a right, it should be a left. As simple as that, such a small confusion, which is about a confusion in a nursery or KG, is impacting him even when he's in his 2nd standard. So getting that to understand with the child, saying you're not able to write parrot, do you want to try drawing it, do you want to try writing it, or do you want to understand what's stopping you, or just show them once this is what is parrot. You might see the child suddenly pop up and say, oh, so the P comes this way. The answer that he gives is nowhere connected to what you're speaking. We also had sometime parents coming and saying, I was teaching ABCD, but the child was talking about vehicles. We never know how the brain is associating. So you might have used a word called jeep or a car, and the child might have gone into a confusion that they had with some other vehicle, and they would have brought up. So when you're into the learning zone, there is no question which is a wrong question from children. Whenever they pick up question, it is important for us to answer that and help them understand their questions in a more broader light. So let's try and dig out and find out if they are first confident about the basics. Whatever subject they're doing, whatever learning that they're beginning, if they're talking about multiplication, are they confident about numbers first? Let's just do a little homework to find out if they're able to do that. So what will help us here is an acronym called CAR, which is how confident they are and how clear they are about the things that are required to be able to learn what they're about to start learning. The second thing is, are they also curious about it? So instead of just saying multiplication, you could actually give them seeds and say, what happens if in a box of four, I put another box of four and I put another box of four? So that is a way you explain saying, multiplication is not about just 4 into 4 is 16. You try to bring it to real life. So that's C. And the next one is A. What is A? A is their ability. So a lot of times as adult, we tend to have a one-way conversation. And this is so with learning too. We try to teach something and we just do it one way and we think the child must have learned it, and suddenly ask them something after days which they will not remember, or suddenly ask them after another 15-20 minutes after doing a round of conversation which they may not remember. It's very important to say, are children picking up the ability to use that knowledge or use that system that we're teaching them? For example, if we're teaching them 1 2 3 4, it could be as simple as saying, can you draw one? Or give them sand and say, could you draw one here? Or give them something else and over that say, okay, is this one, is this two? Ask them from real things and see, are they picking up the ability, or they're just showing their face as if they're listening? Because the moment they build ability, the next thing is they will start using it. So A stands for ability. Support children to build ability beyond just what they're listening or seeing. How they can, put it to use. Are they able to pick it up, gauge that? If not, go back to the subject again and deliver it in a different way, or whatever you're teaching, try to present it in a different way. And then gauge again if they're able to use it. The next one is R, repeatability. Sometimes it happens that a child is said a 1 2 3 4 or A to Z correct, which is one time, and we think, oh, my child has learned it, and after 1 month you ask them to say it in front of a guest and you're so disappointed that he has a learning problem, he has forgotten everything. It is not about that. It is that child needs repeatability. The child's brain is picking up information at such a rapid rate that we can't even imagine. I mean, if we were in that state, we would really get shocked. So we need to help them build things which are important. For example, if you're handling a kindergarten child and numbers are important, colors are important, or alphabets are important, if you visited a concept with them, try to repeat it in different ways throughout the week, at least after every 2 weeks, and go back and help the child. Because once that you've done A to Z, they could have forgotten the flow, they could have forgotten the way it looks, or they could have forgotten the association that they built around it. Every time that you repeat and you go around with them in different interesting ways. So once if you've learned it on a notebook, second time do it with objects, third time do it as a song, in different ways possible, but repeat it multiple times for them to build it like a foundation. So if the foundation for learning is very strong, the skyscraper can be built to any level. So that's important, which is CAR. Another very important one is to look at what are the learning styles in children. So today what happens is children have been getting a lot of gadgets and multimedia, and mostly we think children learn out of videos. But if you look at even the videos, or you look at the way learning happens, children learn through visual, auditory and kinesthetic, out of which most of the times in our system we focus on the visual. That is, if we show them a video, we think they've gotten it. If we talk to them or we teach them in the class and our voice is there and we've written on the board, we think it's audio and it's reached them. But one of the most powerful things is doing, which is the kinesthetic way. So there is a saying which says that if you show me, I may see it. If you speak to me, I may hear it. But if you help me do it, I will learn it. So as parents, I would encourage whatever you're learning with children. Why I'm saying learning with children is because we are also learning. We need to be open when you're teaching something for them to tell us something back in a very different perspective we have never looked at. So doing is an activity where if you're talking about numbers, you actually pick up objects in front of them and show them. Maybe if you're having tiffin boxes or bowls, and ask them saying, is this 1, 2 or 3? Make it really real for them. Allow them to do it, not just in books and theory and speaking and visual. The more they're able to explore their environment with learning, the bigger learners that they become. We spoke about visual, auditory and kinesthetic, which is the doing mode. A bonus to all of this is when a child is seeing something, hearing something and doing something. The moment you spend a little time reflecting on it and discussing it, that becomes a place where the child starts to apply it. So we don't want the learning only to stay with just knowing. We want them to start applying it, to start using it in their environment. One of the things you could do is, after you finish talking about something or showing them something, ask them back questions and say, how do you think this works, or how did you do this? Tell me a little bit more about it. Did you see this? Did you see that? Ask them in such a way that they're able to discuss the subject with you. You will be able to see where the child is finding challenges, where he's able to do better, and be able to adapt with that as you do more subjects and more learning with the child. So reflecting and discussion is a very critical part of learning. So learning is completely an engagement game, and the more you adopt these practices, you will realize your child is becoming a learner. The child is drawing information towards himself because now he's into curiosity mode. He wants to do things. He wants to experiment. He wants to know why something is working, not working. And inside of this, a lot of learning can be embedded. So this can really help you create learners.